Do you remember like any changes that happened to the house?
I'm trying to think. I've been over there. You go up the steps and then it turns to the right, and you go up on the platform up there, and the bathroom's to the right.
Mm-hmm.
When I went over there after I was an adult, and I went to visit her, they had that huge bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
And it was completely iron stained. It was almost black on the inside.
Wow.
So I took a bath in it, and I got out and came down to see her, and I said, "Honey, for heaven's sake, why don't you get rid of that bathtub or get rid of that iron stain in it? I mean, it looks awful." "I don't want to do that." I said, "Why not?" "That's because my daddy put that in there." Was in the bedroom downstairs with a wood-burning iron stove and the stack going up through the roof.
Yeah.
And the bathroom was just a little thing right off the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
It had a sink and a commode, and that's all. The door wouldn't close. The commode wouldn't flush. You had to take the top off and reach in and flip the thing, then put the thing there. And I think there was problems with the faucet, but you could get some water out of it. And as far as I know, it stayed that way for at least 30 years, or maybe longer, I don't know.
Wow.
A window broke out in the front. The man showed up. Said, "Well, I'm going to fix a nice window in here." He said, "They want to put one of those modern windows in there. I want a window like the one my daddy put in there." So I talked to the builder, or the carpenter. He said, "Well, I can go back and put the old window in, but," he said, "it's not as efficient." And he said, "The charge will be more because it's a lot more complicated." I went through that for years with her. I know that a lot of people that were acquainted with her have no idea what she was really like.
She's very strong. She's very strong-willed.
To those people that she associated with in the church, she paid for 7 plaques to be put on the wall of the church, $1,000 apiece.
And what were those plaques? I'd have to go
The church
look
would
at it.
decide that Jimmy Joe should be remembered by the church, and they wanted to put up a plaque.
So she would help with that.
Help with it, she paid for it.
That's what I mean. She just was so devoted to the church, and I don't remember a time when she wasn't devoted to the church over there.
Oh, she was, very much so, no question about that.
How many years older than you was she?
1 year.
Oh.
Kissing cousins.
So we're working on fixing up the old barn now, too.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to climb on top of the roof.
I heard ride a wagon off of it or something.
Yeah, I dragged the wagon up there. Uncle come out and yell, "Come in here, get off the top of that barn. Bring that wagon down here." I really loved him. He was a great man.
Do you remember any of the old farm equipment?
The only thing that I remember was that darn truck of his. They wouldn't sell. That truck belonged to my daddy. He was constantly opposed to it.
Was there all kinds of cows around that barn and stuff? When there were all kinds of cows and...
Not too many. Most of them were out in the field.
You know, that she recalls having lived across the road. You know, she talked about the way the farm used to be and that he didn't know how to cook, couldn't boil water, couldn't do anything. But,
Has been a real darling. And she was not properly compensated. But she was with about 12 years. And she carefully looked after her.
Mm-hmm.
She would often come with me or be there. We'd go down the long hall and go into the special room with glass windows that we liked. Have to lock the door and keep it private. June would sometimes have to feed her, and we both talked with her. But I don't think there's any way it can be totally repaid for all the good she did for her. So I'm very indebted to her and have been. If I had been able to stay, I would like to have had him teach me to ride a horse.
You know, she still rides hers.
I know she does.
She just got a new horse.
I know the horse. I've seen it.
You did?
Yeah.
She showed you pictures?
No pictures, but I talked to her when she was on horseback.
Oh. Yeah, she just got a light brown colored new riding horse.
Mm-hmm. She's very knowledgeable about the equestrian business. My great-grandfather had 6 girls and 3 boys.
mm-hmm.
And the 6 girls married all throughout the county. Several years ago, I went into a restaurant, and this woman was sitting there with her family. And she looked at me and pointed and she says, "Are you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, I'm a Faulkner. We're cousins."
And you never knew her? You'd never seen her before?
No, never seen her before.
Because I was very small when both of them died. So what do you remember about them?
Well, Annie was unfortunately very sick toward the last few years of her life. She lived to be 99. She had gangrene of her feet, which was very sad.
And, but when you were growing up, I mean, how often did you go out there to the farm? I mean, what
I
was
went about every summer.
every summer?
Yeah, because I don't know why that started, but when I was about 6 years old, as you know, they decided to send me back to Virginia. They put me on a train and put a sign around my neck that said, "Put him on Virginia." So I was on the train, and the conductor kind of looked after me. And I remember we were coming east, and the conductor said, Stanton, Virginia." And I got out of my chair, or my seat. The conductor said, "No, boy, this is not your place." And I said, "All right." So when I got there, she told me I could get off the train. I got off, and I remember that station very well.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a tourist center.
So what'd you do when you went to the farm? Did they make you work, or did you just play, or?
The farm?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they put me to work.
Oh, man.
I've forgotten now what he used to farm, what his business was.
Well, he had mainly cattle,
Yeah.
and he did some small items,
Mm-hmm.
but it was mainly cattle. The farm, I think, was about 200 acres.
He seemed to me that he's a pretty good old guy. What do you think?
I greatly liked him. I had a lot of fun with him. When we were over here as kids, they'd have family reunions. I've got pictures of it.
Yeah.
We had a pony named Trixie. He would get on the pony for a ride, and I'd take a stick and hit the pony on the rump, hoping he'd throw her off on the ground. So I got in trouble over that.
So you guys played together a lot when you were little then?
Yeah, sure, we were together.
But she wasn't, I've heard she wasn't she wasn't a tomboy or anything. She didn't like to
Rough play.
get dirty or...
That's true. Yeah. She was always very
Ladylike.
ladylike and had on a nice sweet dress and was clean. And she really got upset with me a lot of times. If we had a family dinner there of 10 or 12 people, we would go in the kitchen and look around, but she didn't know what was going on.
Didn't know what anything was in the kitchen.
No.
So you guys ate food in the dining room right there then?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have it all set up as a dining room now too, so...
Have you? Well, that's great. The dining room's right next to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She kept the big farmhouse sink.
And she was a librarian, and she was well known. She had a good reputation. She bought a new car every year from the same Chevrolet place.
Mm-hmm.
She never drove above about 35 miles an hour. I talked to a number of fellows in a gun shop down in Orange some years back, and they said you could always tell which car was driving because there were 6 or 7 cars behind it on the highway that couldn't pass.
Yeah. And they always knew it was her. Yeah.
Why do you think she drove so slow? Was she scared of driving?
No, she just decided that she wasn't want to go very fast. Well, her funeral was totally controlled and planned by her before her demise. List of everything, including the flowers, how the casket was to remain open, the dress she was to wear, the proper fixation of her hair. She was to wear her glasses.
She looked just as if she did in life. She looked as if she had not changed.
Wow.
The way they laid her out and arranged her hair, she had nail polish on, and she looked as ever she did in life. She had not changed.
And then after the completion, the crowd left the church. They closed the casket and took it up to the burial site. And there were fairly large numbers of people who talked and made comments that didn't know a thing in the world about how she really was.
That's true. That's true. Because by the time she passed away, I think she was, 94 or so?
I think about that.
everybody who had come before her was already gone. And so there weren't too many who left who still remembered her, except just in a very tangential way. They just knew her from her being in town, or she used to shop there, or their son knew her when they went to school, went to the library. So there weren't a whole lot of people around who remembered that much about her, because she had been retired for so many years, and she had been in the nursing home for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And so, I would say that just by the natural order of things, life moved on, and so not a whole lot of people remembered her that well, but they had some sort of connection to her. So she had a nice gathering at her funeral, and we had a fried chicken dinner. She prescribed that we were all to go into the church basement, and there was going to be a buffet with fried chicken and everything. And she wanted all that, so it was definitely all pre-planned. So
She told me there used to be a shotgun above the front door.
Yeah.
Do you remember that being there? Did she know how to shoot it?
No.
you don't think she knew how to use the shotgun?
No. I don't think she did.
Did you ever see her handle a gun at all?
Say what?
Ever see her handle a gun at all?
No. Never.
Wow.
I think she kept the shotgun because it belonged to her daddy.
That's right.
It belonged
And as you know, when she was young, she had a boyfriend. And they were supposedly in love. And he got a job in Indiana. And so he told her that he would go to Indiana after they got married, and they could begin their family life over there. And he said, "Oh, I can't go to Indiana and leave my daddy."
That's so true.
So this boyfriend had to hike off to Indiana without a wife.
Wow.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's all she would ever say about anything. And I think that was just her perspective. She kept it all pretty close to the chest. But she lived in a small world over here, wouldn't you say? Well,
So do you think she was afraid in the house by herself?
I don't think so.
I never got that feeling at all. I mean, every time we'd go out to visit her, she seemed just as comfortable, and this was just...
She was control of everything all the time.
And
She certainly was.
that's the way she liked it. But the thing was, she stayed in our lives. I mean, you went your way and she went her way. She stayed here and you moved on with your career and all. But she was always in our lives. I mean, she stayed in touch. She would send cards, and
Well, we corresponded occasionally.
that's right. She was always around. She came to my sister's wedding, and she came to my wedding, and I have a picture of her. We were in a garden, was holding the veil of my hat, or something. She was always just kind of on the periphery. She was so modest, but she was there. But she always just took a very gentle presence, and she was just a proper a lady in every sense. And every time she would see us, she would always give us a little box of Russell Stover candy. It was just a little box of 3 or 4 pieces of Russell Stover candy, and that was always her gift. So he's just got this extended family that just seems to go on and on. And well, it's just nice that you're so interested in the history of the farm and the people who had that land and what they did and how they managed and the old days before plumbing and electricity and everything else. And